Let me ask you something. Have you ever reacted to something and then later thought, why did I respond like that? You knew better. You had a better plan. You had already decided what you were going to do. But in the moment, something took over. You became defensive. You shut down. You over-explained. You avoided the conversation. You said yes when you wanted to say no. Or you suddenly needed to escape. And afterward you thought, that wasn't even like me. Here is something I want you to consider. Maybe it was you, just not the part of you that was making a calm, deliberate decision. Your nervous system is constantly evaluating your environment for safety, threat, uncertainty, and demand. And when it perceives danger, your body can respond before your conscious mind has finished analyzing what is happening. That is useful when you are facing an actual emergency. But what happens when your nervous system begins treating an uncomfortable email, a difficult conversation, an uncertain opportunity, or critical comment like a threat? Your life can start being organized around avoiding discomfort rather than pursuing what matters. And that is where things get interesting, because you may believe you are making decisions based on logic when your nervous system has already influenced the decision before your reasoning catches up. Today, I want to show you how this can affect your decisions, your relationships, productivity, emotional stability, and even your definition of success. And more importantly, how to stop letting your internal alarm system quietly become the CEO of your life. Now, let's get into it. Let's imagine you're about to walk into an important meeting. You know what you want to say. You have prepared. You understand the issue. But as you approach the room, your heart starts beating faster. Your shoulders tighten. Your thoughts become scattered. Suddenly, you're second-guessing everything. Nothing has actually happened yet. No. But your body is already responding. That's because your nervous system isn't waiting for a formal report from your conscious mind. It is continuously responding to what it perceives. And this matters because your perception of safety can influence your behavior. Consider someone who grew up learning that conflict was dangerous. As an adult, they may avoid unnecessary conversations, not because they don't know how to communicate, but because their system has learned, 1, conflict equals threat. Another person may have learned that mistakes lead to criticism. So they become perfectionistic. Another may associate uncertainty with danger. So they overplan everything. Another may have learned that being needed creates security. So they struggle to say no. Now, notice what is happening. The person may consciously say, I want to set better boundaries. But their nervous systems may be saying, if you disappoint them, you are not safe. And when those two messages compete, guess which one often wins in the moment? The one attached to the stronger psychological response. That is why insight alone doesn't always change behavior. You can intellectually understand a pattern and still automatically repeat it. Now, let's talk about high capacity people. Because here is the irony. The more capable you are, the easier it can be to compensate for an overloaded internal system. You can keep functioning. You can meet deadlines. You can solve problems. You can lead teams. You can take care of everyone. You can appear completely composed. But your ability to perform doesn't necessarily mean your system is regulated. Think about a high performance car. It can generate incredible speed. But if you drive it constantly at maximum capacity without maintenance, eventually something gives. Your nervous system is similar. It wasn't designed for endless activation. No. Yet many high performers live in a constant state of what is next? What is the next problem? The next deadline? The next message? The next crisis? And eventually, high alert becomes normal. You stop recognizing tension as tension. You call it ambition. You call it responsibility. You call it leadership. You call it being productive. But your body may be simply saying, I have been carrying too much for too long. That is why somebody can take a vacation and still feel exhausted. The calendar changed, but the internal state didn't immediately change with it. And if you don't understand that distinction, you may keep trying to solve an internal regulation problem with external productivity strategies. Here is where this becomes even more important. Your nervous system can influence what feels like a good decision. Think about 3 people receiving the same opportunity. Person A sees possibility. Person B sees uncertainty. Person C sees danger. Same opportunity, different internal responses. And those responses can shape the decisions that follow. When you are chronically stressed or overwhelmed, your system may give priority to immediate relief over long-term alignment. You choose the option that reduces discomfort now. You avoid the conversation. You postpone the decision. You say yes to stop someone being upset. You abandon the goal because the uncertainty feels overwhelming. The decision may feel like relief, but relief isn't always alignment. That's a crucial distinction. Sometimes the decision that makes you feel better immediately creates a bigger problem later. And sometimes the right decision feels uncomfortable, precisely because you are stepping outside an old pattern. This is why I don't tell my clients to simply trust their feelings. Feelings provide information, but information needs interpretation. The goal is not to obey every emotional signal. The goal is to understand the signal and decide consciously what deserves action. That is emotional stability. Not having no emotional reactions, having enough internal stability to respond instead of automatically reacting. So how do you know when your nervous system is running the show? How do you know? Look for patterns. You constantly avoid difficult conversations. You overthink decisions that involve uncertainty. You become unusually defensive when receiving feedback. You struggle to rest without feeling guilty. You become productive whenever you are anxious. You withdraw when you are overwhelmed. You constantly seek reassurance. Or you keep yourself busy because stillness makes uncomfortable thoughts harder to avoid. None of this automatically means something is wrong with you. No. There can be learned responses. And learned responses can be examined. That is where my internal coherence recalibration model becomes relevant. I don't approach the internal system as something to fight. I approach it as something to understand. We look at the relationship between values. What matters? We look at identity. This is, what do you believe? Who do you believe you are? We look at emotions that tell us what you are experiencing. We look at priorities. And this tells us what deserves your attention. We look at your behaviors. And this tells us what you are actually reinforcing. Then we ask, is the way you are responding consistent with what you genuinely value? Because sometimes your nervous system is protecting an old version of you from a threat that no longer exists. And recalibration means creating enough awareness and stability to recognize that difference. That is what recalibration does. Let me give you 3 practical shifts. Shift 1. Create space before you decide. When you notice a strong reaction, don't immediately make the decision. Pause. Breathe. Step away if appropriate. Give your conscious mind an opportunity to catch up. Ask, what am I reacting to? And what am I actually deciding? Those may be 2 different things. Shift 2. Name the pattern. Instead of saying, I'm just an overthinker, get specific. When I face uncertainty, I immediately start looking for more information. Instead of saying, I hate confrontation, try saying, when someone is disappointed with me, I automatically move toward appeasing them. Specificity creates awareness. Awareness creates choice. Shift 3. Align the response with your values. Ask, if I were responding from clarity rather than fear, what would I do? That doesn't mean ignoring your nervous system. It means listening without handing it complete authority. Maybe the answer is to have the conversation. Maybe it's to rest. Maybe it's to establish a boundary. Maybe it is to slow down. Maybe it's to move forward despite uncertainty. The answer will be different for different situations. But the principle remains. Your internal system, your internal state should inform your decisions, not secretly make them for you. It should not make decisions secretly for you. No. Let me leave you with this. Your nervous system isn't your enemy. It is doing something incredibly important. It is trying to protect you. The problem begins when protection becomes the primary strategy for living. When avoiding discomfort becomes more important than pursuing purpose. When immediate relief becomes more important than long-term alignment. When fear becomes more influential than your values. When your past experiences become the filter through which every new experience is interpreted. That is when your internal alarm system starts running your life. And the answer isn't to suppress it. It is to develop enough awareness, emotional stability, and internal coherence to work with it. Because you don't want a life where you never feel fear. You want a life where fear doesn't automatically make your decisions. You don't want a life without uncertainty. You want the capacity to move through uncertainty without abandoning yourself. You don't want to eliminate difficult emotions. You want to understand them without becoming controlled by them. That is the deeper purpose of recalibration. To create greater coherence between what your system is experiencing and how you consciously choose to respond. When your values, identity, emotions, priorities, and behavior begin working together, you become less reactive. Your decisions become clearer. Your boundaries become stronger. Your emotional responses become more manageable. And you reclaim something incredibly valuable. Choice. You reclaim your choice. So the next time you find yourself reacting strongly, don't immediately ask, what is wrong with me? Pause. Ask, what is my system perceiving right now? And does that perception still fit the reality I'm actually in? That question creates space between the signal and the decision. And sometimes that is where your freedom begins. If this message resonated with you, comment here below with the word choice. And tell me, where do you notice your automatic reactions influencing you most? Is it decision making, relationships, boundaries, work, or dealing with uncertainty? If you are ready to escape overwhelm, restore emotional stability, and develop decision clarity through the internal coherence recalibration model, subscribe to the channel. Because the goal isn't to silence your nervous system. It is to make sure it informs your life without taking control of it.